Alrighty, welcome back to the podcast, the YouTube channel. I decided to get back into this and share my knowledge, share my expertise through this medium because I really enjoy it, and I'm adding video to it because I want to get better on video. So, without further ado, today I want to talk about followers and buyers and how they are different, especially within the coaching industry. What you've seen over the last couple of years, well, within the last 4 years, is that um, it has become increasingly easy to go viral because people know the hacks. But on the flip side of this, people think that they need to go viral or they need to have a large audience in order to in order to get buyers, in order to get clients. And I want to talk about that, how that translates in the coaching industry um, today. So if you're new here, my name is Kevin Fernandez. Welcome back to the podcast. This is a podcast that has had a lot of lives, a lot of new beginnings. This is the newest beginning. It's called the Kevin Fernandez Podcast, and it's all about how you integrate certain aspects of what is already working inside of your business into the next version of your coaching business. And I'll help you integrate what is already working and scale your business to whatever goal you have. I should be a little bit more specific as a business coach, but this is where I am at right now. So let's get into it. Why do why does a large following doesn't equal a thriving coaching business? And there's a painful paradox happening in this coaching world right now because social media has made it really easy to build an audience. Social media has also made it very appealing to build an audience, and systematically it makes sense. I need a brand first, then I get customers. Without a brand, I don't get customers, right? And there's a few things here that we need to tackle in order to basically get rid of that idea. And I see this daily with the coaches that I have worked and that I am working with. I've worked with coaches that had 120,000, 160,000, 86,000, 36,000, and also a coach that has 400 followers and was able to monetize their brand through different integration systems. So I've worked with all those coaches, and the main reason why coaches reach out to me is because they need more leads. They need to um, get more consistent clients, and they need to have a little bit more free time on their hands. And so we build the systems around what's already working in order for them to create the business that they desire to work in or work on, depending on what level of coach you are at right now. So, okay. What's the difference between followers and buyers? So what's the difference between the coaches that sell out their coaching, one-on-one or group coaching programs, and what is the difference between the coaches that have a following and don't necessarily monetize it? What's the missing link between audience and income? Let's start with the reality check, right? First and foremost, there's a psychological principle called the mere exposure effect, and that effect explains why followers may enjoy your content, they may like it, they may comment on it, but they will repeatedly not buy from you. And essentially, what happens is that they are familiar with you, and that familiarity creates comfort. But that comfort doesn't automatically trigger purchase decisions. You can think of this from a place of you are, let me give you an example here that is relatable. Actually, I have an example. I don't necessarily see myself doing business with certain of my friends, but I see myself doing business with some of my friends that are highly, that are really good at sharing what they're good at. And this is the missing link, especially within this concept here, is that social media is advocating to create connections. Social media is advocating in order to build a personal brand and build this connection with the creator. But the creator essentially forgets to share and position themselves as the authority within their niche. They're really good at doing the friendly bit, but not the business type of bit. So that is essentially what's happening here. On the other hand, there is another phenomenon called the intention behavior gap. And the intention behavior gap is or shows that people's intentions don't necessarily follow up or translate into other behaviors. So, for example, the intention of me liking a post, the intention of me following someone, the intention of me commenting on someone, the intention of me getting a free resource, which we'll talk about in another video, doesn't necessarily translate into me wanting to buy from that creator, me wanting to buy from that coach. Because there is, again, it's the same it's the same phenomenon here. The reason why we do something doesn't necessarily translate with what we want to with the creator. My reason of purchase, my reason of liking is not the what you think my reason of liking is, right? And essentially we need to close that gap through triggers and systems for me as a customer to want to buy. So I'll talk about that in just a bit. So this really explains why you might have followers who genuinely love your content, who consistently engage with everything you post, and who seem like the perfect clients, right? They like, they comment, they relate to your experience, yet they never make the leap to working with you. And this is essentially the big problem. Most coaches are chasing the wrong metrics, right? These vanity metrics are the wrong metrics. We are in this world where everyone is telling us to optimize for virality, follower growth, and these vanity metrics, they are essentially just a myth that followers equals cash, followers equals business. But I mean, let me tell you that, and this might be hard to hear, and I never actually believed in it myself until I actually got to work with the people that had a large amount of followers, but they were barely able to monetize their brand, right? The content that gets you followers and the skill of becoming viral is fundamentally different from the content that gets you sales. That is just a hard truth to understand. And so this is break number 1 of the podcast. If you were to learn a skill, which skill would you prefer to learn? Would you prefer to learn the skill of becoming viral and get thousands of followers? Or would you prefer to learn the skill of positioning yourself as the authority in order to get sales, or how to sell? So even though you will apply both into the marketing scheme, they are both under the marketing umbrella. You are creating content, right? It's marketing, but some content gets you sales, some content gets you growth. And those are two fundamentally different skills to have in your arsenal, or not to have in your arsenal. So let's break this down a little bit further. The growth content is what gets you discovered. And growth content requires, this is something that I learned from my previous podcast coaching days, growth content requires a large amount of audience to relate to the same subject, to relate to the same video idea, to relate to certain concept of connection that you're trying to build with that client, right? With the brand. And oftentimes, nowadays with the algorithm and many chat automations, what you will see is you can have educational content go viral because people get to comment a word and they get a free PDF. We'll talk about that in another video, which is completely... Anyway, it can be inspirational because inspiration connects with a lot of people and it's not niche or industry specific. And then it can be entertaining because entertaining, like a coach as well as a 9-to-5, as well as an unemployed person are able to share that post and still relate to it because it's entertaining, and they can share it with all their friends and they would not be judged by sharing it because it's entertaining, right? So that type of content is growth content. Now, conversion content specifically moves people from being passive followers to active buyers. And it's not due to the call to action, but it is due to the shift in mindset that you are creating, the shift in perspective that you are creating in the content. So what I mean by that, I think that will be a little bit outside of the scope of this video, or podcast. You are essentially creating a scenario that by sharing your piece of content, you are staying in people's minds. Like you are basically renting out some free time in their mind. And the closest I can think about is by giving you an example. The best way I can think about on how to share that with you is by giving you an example. There are certain types of content that make you think if you should change your strategy, for example, right? There are certain pieces of content that make you think, this coach actually knows what he's talking about. Or there's certain pieces of content where the coach doesn't only know what he's talking about, but he also knows what you have done. So say you've tried ads and you don't necessarily want to go the ads route anymore. So the coach knows that you have done ads, and he shares the opposite perspective on how to actually do it. So he knows, he targets you specifically. He almost speaks to you as if he speaks to you from a place of knowing exactly where you are, what you've tried, and positioning himself that his method will solve all your past problems that you have already tried, and positions himself as the expert to get you to get to the goal where you're at. And so this content basically is often content that is differentiating you from the competition in some ways and positioning your product as the better solution than the competition, or the only solution that gets you to live the lifestyle that you desire, right? And also at the same time, gets you to become the identity, the person that you want to be. While, finally, this is the last piece, is also creating urgency. So one of the most underrated things in conversion content, and one of the most, not conversion content, one of the most underrated things one can do as a coach for his coaching business or her coaching business, I'll talk his, all right? His coaching business is definitely creating urgency, and especially creating urgency within his program, within his coaching program. And that has many forms. That can go through CTAs, that can go through opening periods, that can go through just a copy that you do, that can be through a wait list. There's many ways of doing this, and you can do all of them at once as well. That can be through live events that only happen once, whatever. But urgency is the last pillar, and essentially you are directing them towards an urgent behavior, an urgent thing that you are offering that they should take advantage of. And so conversion content is completely different than growth content, because it is highly specific to the client that you're trying to attract. So if you're focusing most of your time on growth content and you're wondering why you're not getting sales, you now understand there's two types of content, and they have two different purposes. And it's basically like you're planting seeds to your coaching business by creating content and content and content. But if you never create conversion content, or if you never lead your people towards your offer, you're not consistently offering and selling, you're never harvesting anything. And then you're wondering why you're starving, right? So I can also hear some of you, but hey, Kevin, surely more followers will eventually mean more sales, right? And that is not automatically true. There's some people that have less than 2,000 followers and they're making $1 million a year for sure on Instagram, right? Like there's some people that use ads. There's some people that have a different strategy at all. And they understand that the skill of selling is different than the skill of going viral. And they just focus all their energy, all their eggs in one basket, which is conversion. But systematic conversion, that yes, they will pay in terms of advertising, but you will pay in terms of time in regards to going viral. And I'm not saying that you should not do any organic content. I believe that organic content has a place, but I'll just give you an example here, right? So size is less important than quality and activation. So the quality of your content will always outperform any viral content, because that quality will persist the test of time. And even the viral videos, you forget about them. There's some videos that stick to your mind, but you'll forget about them. And then activation is, how do you activate your clients into going to the next step? How do you activate them towards pursuing the next step? So I've worked with creators, I've worked with coaches who had anywhere between 30 and 160,000 followers. and they all struggled, or at least the ones that reach out to me are the ones that I reach out to, and we connected and we built a business together. Like, it was always around monetization and activating their audience in order to sell. And now there's obviously, I'm not going to go into all of it. I really want to focus today on content specific, only content and what's the other thing? Content and monetization, because there's a layer to systems, there's a layer to funnels, there's a layer to flywheels, there's a layer to trust funnels, there's a layer to all of these different things that you are then systemizing an automatic lead flow, which I'm not going into today, but just the fact of activating your audience and getting clients, and the difference between growth and what's the word? Conversion content. That's what I want to talk about today. So I'll give you a little example here on how crazy this is. I've worked with a coach that I've built a 20K a month coaching business from scratch with a creator that at the time had 38,000 followers, and we monetized it to 20,000 a month from a coaching business, a podcast, and what else was there? And a community. We did those three things in order to make it to 20,000. Now, the other coach that I worked with had 400 followers, also a podcast, and no community. The coach started I think when we started working together, he was doing between 2 and 5K. And now, especially the last 2 months, it's been 2 consecutive 10 to 12K months. And that is because we are learning and really dissecting how to activate his audience, and basically doing this journey together of accountability and growing and doing that. So while a large audience provides more opportunities, the conversion percentage often decreases as your audience grows, right? Because your audience is growing, but growing less targeted. You're getting more people, but more of different people into your audience. Like even Tony Robbins, he doesn't have 1 million followers who are only coaches. It's probably only a percentage of that are coaches. So you don't necessarily need to think about going viral, because that will create a more scattered audience. A smaller, more highly aligned audience actually outperforms and is better for you, because it will allow you to stay specific within your niche, and therefore also create more conversion content that activates your clients into buying from you. On the other hand, you can think of high performing posts on social media from a place of, this is actually a good one. I'm just coming up with these topics as I go here. You can think of high performing posts. How do they translate in terms of sales? Is it because you have one viral video that you are going to get more sales? The probability is no. Even if it is one video that gets you to share more freebies, right, with many chat automations, do you get more sales? The answer is no. And the reason it is no is because the audience that you're attracting through those freebies, which again, we're going to talk about in another video, is not the same audience that is willing and wanting to buy from you. Because the freebie seekers are do-it-yourself buyers. Do-it-yourself buyers are people that still need to go into the do it with you in a way. This is a completely different, this is outside of the scope of this video again. But let's just say there's a large audience that is trying to figure it out themselves, and they have to still do so many mistakes and try it out all by themselves until they realize that working with someone is much faster than working all by themselves and figuring it out all by themselves. Because once they do that, and they have the accountability and they have the systems, they just need to follow a blueprint, then they are going to be better off. But before they are willing to invest in themselves, they need to lose the time and basically understand that understand the cost of inaction, which is the cost of not investing. They need to understand that before they get to invest in someone else, right? So content that converts requires fundamentally a different approach than content that grows your following. And building a profitable coaching business requires to master both, or at least mastering the art of knowing how to get attention and how to convert that attention into buyers. Knowing how to get attention does not always require you to go viral. All right, there's many ways of getting attention, and it doesn't necessarily need to be from the place of going viral. So what does conversion content really look like? And conversion content, I've shared it a little bit before, but conversion content is content that makes your audience aware of the cost of inaction. So most coaches really create content from a place of vacuum, what comes in their heads, what is the idea, and it's really disconnected from their offer, their main thing that they're offering, and the client conversations that you are having. So you need to think of before you start creating content, you actually need to think of what is the end in mind here, and does that put you as the authority, especially when you're creating conversion content? Does that put you as the authority within your niche? Because if you're selling your offer, what is the content that your audience requires, or that your audience needs in order to take action, right? And let's just go a round table here of asking questions. Do you think that is educational content? Do you think that is valuable content, value content? Do you think that is connection content? And I feel like I've kind of like answered all those questions already by asking the question, and it's no to all of them. You know, if they are following you, clients, or not clients, followers who are on your profile already, they know you. They know, ideally, they already know what your offer is. Ideally, they already know how you're helping them, right? And this can be done through the bio and like your top 3 posts on social media. What is it that they require if they know your method, your offer, and they know who you are and how you can help them? They need a reason to act. So they need a reason to act. They need you to lead them towards that decision. The way you lead someone towards a decision is by showing them the way they're thinking right now is completely off to where they want to go. In terms of content strategy, especially conversion content, you should at least have half of your posts being that, if not 75% of it. So 1 in 4 posts should be conversion content, and you can have viral content in between. And the reason I say this is because, actually, let me ask you a question. Have you exuded all your coaching opportunities inside of the current following that you have? I don't know what that number is in terms of percentage, how many potential customers you have inside of your audience that are willing and wanting to buy from you. But if you have a small audience and it's not just full of your friends, that should be definitely above 50%. And if, say, you have 500 people on your audience or as a followers, and 250 of them are potential clients, but you have only had 50 clients in the last few years, well, you still have 200 that you could sell to, right? And so I'm not saying this from a place of being pushy. I'm saying this from a place of, hey, you probably have not exuded all your potential customers from your current audience. So don't even, like, instead of you trying to just go viral all the time, why don't you just focus on the audience that you already have? Become resourceful, right? And the way you do that is by creating urgency. You can create urgency throughout your program. And whenever you create urgency within your program, you also create urgency within your marketing, because your marketing should be a direct reflection of your program. So if you create a wait list, if you create opening periods, enrollment periods for your offer, you are creating urgency automatically. And that is essentially how you would be able to activate them with call to actions, with money increases, right? Investment increases. You are activating your audience through different mediums inside of your content, inside in your content. By doing all of this, I think this is the most important part that I have not mentioned this. By doing all of this, you don't need to pray to the algorithm gods in order to become viral, first and foremost. You also don't need to consistently have the stress of going viral, which is not just praying to the algorithm gods, but also thinking about yourself. Then on the flip side of this, you can and will always be able to sell better. That might be that can be through sales calls. That can also be through DMs. That can be um, through your landing page. Like, the reason why you would be able to sell much better, because you now have an idea of how to activate your audience, right? And you will have sales periods. You don't need a sales rep 24/7. You can have a salesperson for once 1 week a month, and that 1 week a month you will have like 10 calls or 20 calls if that is required. Or on the other side, you can also just have you don't need a sales rep. You could potentially, because you are so drilled down on your messaging and positioning, you're able to now help transition to DM selling. So the methods here are a little bit endless, and the number of ways you can facilitate and simplify your business from this perspective is now increased, because you can have less people on your business. You can have you can have one system that works for all your offers, which in this case is only one offer. All right. And you can spend that time, instead of selling your time or spending your time on sales calls. Now you get to spend it on a business. You get to spend it on impacting more people, or you spend it on your family time with your outside in the woods or whatever, right? So the missing link here between audience and income isn't more content, it's audience activation. It's strategically designing your content to move people from passive consumption to active participation in your offers. All right. I want you to think about this one thing, right? I want you to stop, first and foremost, chasing new followers and instead focus on closing the followers that you already have, right? Converting or prompting your followers um, to become prompting your followers to become buyers, creating more conversion content instead of really focusing entirely on the algorithm and going viral. Because what if you could double your income without even adding a single new follower? This is essentially what my client did. He doubled his income by adding 0 followers to his Instagram account. Actually, he'd added some of followers, but it was not because of that he got more sales. It is possible. So for most coaches, this isn't just possible. This is actually the fastest path to sustainable growth and sustainable success. And if you're ready to transform your followers into clients, I have not created a free resource, even though that says it in my teleprompter. But I am running a workshop which is on the audience activation framework, that I teach my clients on how to activate their audience with conversion content. I'm running it. The date will be in the description. And if you are interested in doing that, you can either send me a DM with activation on Instagram, or click the link in the description, and we'll get it sorted. And I'll see you then. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.